If your blood sugar is high, almost every piece of advice you have been handed starts with the word no. No bread, no rice, no fruit, no potatoes. Take these three things away and take that one away too. I want to tell you something that took me years of treating patients to fully trust. The fastest way I have ever seen people bring their blood sugar down is not by taking foods away. It is by adding the right ones in. There is one food on the list I am about to give you that goes to work while you are asleep on the exact reason so many of you wake up with a high number you cannot explain. And the very last food, number 10, is a food most people with high sugar have been told to be afraid of because it is a carbohydrate. It lowers blood sugar anyway, and by the end I will show you why. My name is Dr. Neil Barnard. I have spent most of my career studying how food talks directly to the machinery that runs your blood sugar. And I can tell you that these 10 foods are not a folk remedy. Each one does a specific, understood job inside your body. Let me show you what that job is, one food at a time, so you are not just following a list, you actually understand why it works. First, let me tell you what almost no one has the time to explain in a short office visit. High blood sugar rarely starts with sugar. It starts one step upstream with a hormone called insulin. Think of insulin as the key that unlocks your cells, so the sugar floating in your blood can get out of the bloodstream and into the cell, where it is supposed to be burned for energy. When you have spent years on the blood sugar roller coaster, your cells slowly stop answering the door. The insulin knocks, and the cell stays shut. We call that insulin resistance. Your pancreas responds by making more and more insulin. Your blood sugar climbs anyway, and the usual answer is a prescription that pushes even more insulin into a body that is already swimming in it. Every one of the 10 foods I'm about to show you does one of three things. It slows the sugar coming in, so your blood never floods. It cools the quiet inflammation that keeps your cells deaf to insulin. Or it helps that insulin key turn in the lock again, so your own body does the work it was built to do. You do not need to do all 10 tomorrow. Add them in over the next couple of weeks and let them stack. Here is the first one. Number 1 is fenugreek seeds. These are small, hard, amber-colored seeds, and you can find them in the spice aisle of almost any grocery store for a couple of dollars. If you skip this one because it sounds unfamiliar, you are walking past one of the most powerful blood sugar tools on the shelf. Here is what fenugreek does inside you. The seed is packed with a soluble fiber that swells into a thick gel the moment it hits the water in your stomach. That gel physically slows how fast your stomach hands carbohydrates down into your intestine. Slower handoff means the sugar trickles into your blood instead of flooding it. No flood, no spike, no panic release of insulin. On top of that, fenugreek carries an amino acid that gently nudges your pancreas to release its insulin more efficiently. To use it, soak 1 teaspoon of the whole seeds in a glass of water overnight, and in the morning drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the slightly bitter taste is too much, grind them and stir half a teaspoon into your oatmeal. Start low because this fiber is strong and your gut needs a few days to adjust. Number 2 is cinnamon, and you almost certainly already have it in your cupboard. But the kind you have matters, and most people grab the wrong one. The common grocery cinnamon is cassia, and it carries a compound called coumarin that is hard on the liver in large daily doses. The one you want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon. It is milder, it is safer to take every day, and it is the one I tell my own patients to buy. What makes cinnamon work is a group of natural plant compounds called polyphenols that behave almost like insulin themselves. They help your insulin receptors grip glucose more tightly, and they slow your stomach from emptying too quickly after a meal. Use about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon a day. Stir it into oatmeal, coffee, or a smoothie. The trick is to pair it with a meal that has carbohydrates in it, because that is exactly the moment you want your receptors gripping harder and your stomach slowing down. Number 3 is the one I promised you at the start, the food that works while you sleep. It is broccoli sprouts, not full broccoli. The little 3-day-old sprouts. Ignore that distinction and you miss almost all of the benefit. Broccoli sprouts are loaded with a compound called sulforaphane, and the sprouts carry somewhere between 50 and 100 times more of it than a full head of mature broccoli. Here is why that matters for the number you see in the morning. While you sleep, your liver runs a small sugar factory, quietly releasing glucose into your blood so your brain has fuel through the night. In insulin resistance, that factory runs far too hard, which is why so many of you wake up having eaten nothing for 8 or 9 hours to your highest reading of the entire day. Sulforaphane goes to the liver and turns that overnight factory down. A carefully run study in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to people with type 2 diabetes and brought their fasting blood sugar down measurably, with the strongest effect in exactly the people whose sugar was hardest to control. You can grow the sprouts on your own counter in a jar for pennies, or buy them in the produce section. A small handful, about a quarter cup on a salad or sandwich most days, is plenty. Eat them raw or barely wilted because hard cooking destroys the very compound you are after. Number 4 is chia seeds. These are tiny gray and black seeds that punch far above their size. If you have ever watched chia sit in liquid and turn into a soft pudding, you've already seen exactly what it does inside your gut. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber you can buy. When it meets the water in your stomach, it forms that same thick gel we talked about with fenugreek, and that gel wraps around the carbohydrates in your meal and slows their release to a crawl. Chia also carries a plant-based omega-3 fat that helps calm the low-grade inflammation sitting underneath insulin resistance. Cool. That inflammation and the cells begin listening to insulin again. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day does the job. Stirred into oatmeal, dropped into a glass of water with a squeeze of lemon, or blended into a smoothie. Give it 10 minutes to gel and drink plenty of water alongside because all that fiber needs liquid to move. Number 5 is oats, and I mean real oats, steel-cut or old-fashioned rolled oats, not the sugary instant packets. The magic in oats is a special fiber called beta-glucan. It dissolves into a thick, velvety gel in your digestive tract, and that gel forms a barrier along the wall of your intestine that slows how quickly sugar can cross into your blood. A bowl of genuine oats in the morning gives you a slow, steady release of energy, instead of the spike and crash you get from cold cereal or white toast. Half a cup of dry oats cooked is a solid breakfast. Stir in that cinnamon, top it with a few berries, and you have turned the most dangerous meal of the day for a lot of people into one of the safest. Number 6 is leafy greens. Spinach, kale, collards, Swiss chard. I know greens are the least exciting thing on any list, but they are quietly one of the most protective foods you can eat for your blood sugar. They are very low in carbohydrate, so they barely move your sugar at all, and they are rich in magnesium, a mineral your body has to have to use insulin properly. People with low magnesium consistently have a harder time controlling their sugar, and greens are one of the best ways to put it back. Aim for a large serving every day. Build a salad, wilt a couple of handfuls into a soup, or fold them into whatever you are already cooking. The goal is simple. Crowd the plate with green, and there is less room left for the things that spike you. Number 7 is walnuts. Of all the nuts, this is the one I point my patients toward first because of what it does for your blood vessels and your insulin at the same time. Walnuts are rich in a plant-based omega-3 fat, the same family found in chia. That fat improves the function of the thin, delicate lining inside your blood vessels, which is one of the very first things high blood sugar quietly damages. At the same time, the fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunt the rise in blood sugar after a meal. Eat a small handful, about a quarter cup, or 7 to 10 whole walnuts as a snack in place of crackers or a cookie, and you have taken what would have been a sugar spike and flattened it into a gentle line. Keep them raw or dry roasted, never the candied or honey-coated kind, and use them to replace a processed snack, not to pile on top of one. Number 8 is tofu. And I want to say a word about breakfast here because breakfast is where so many people lose the whole day. For years, people were steered toward eggs and bacon, or worse, toward a sugary cereal with a health claim on the box. A simple tofu scramble does the steady protein job at breakfast without any of the cholesterol, and soy foods like tofu have their own gentle benefit for insulin. Because tofu is protein and healthy fat with very little carbohydrate on its own, it barely moves your blood sugar, and it steadies you not just through breakfast, but well into the afternoon. So, the mid-morning cravings that send you toward the cookie jar quietly fade. Crumble a block of firm tofu into a hot pan with a little turmeric for color. Fold in some of those greens and a handful of mushrooms, and you have built a breakfast that keeps your sugar flat until lunch. Number 9 is apple cider vinegar, and this is the one with the fastest visible effect on a glucose meter of anything on this list. If you have a meter at home, you can watch this one work tonight. The active ingredient is acetic acid, and it does two things at once. It slows your stomach from emptying, so the carbohydrates in your meal arrive gradually, and it helps your muscles pull glucose out of your blood and burn it for fuel. The research here is genuinely strong. Work led by Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University found that a tablespoon of vinegar taken before a carbohydrate meal improved insulin sensitivity by roughly a third in people who are insulin resistant. That is close to a drug-sized effect from something that costs a few dollars a bottle. Take 1 tablespoon, and this part matters, diluted in a full glass of water 10 to 15 minutes before a meal that has carbohydrates in it. Always dilute it. Never drink it straight because the acid is hard on your tooth enamel and your throat. Number 10 is lentils, and this one proves the entire point of this video. Lentils are a carbohydrate, the very thing you have been told to fear, and they will lower your blood sugar. Here is how. Lentils are built from a slow carbohydrate wrapped in soluble fiber and a healthy dose of plant protein. That combination means the sugar inside the lentil is released into your blood slowly and steadily over hours, instead of all at once. In a carefully controlled trial, people with type 2 diabetes who ate about a cup of legumes a day for 3 months lowered their long-term blood sugar, their A1C, by about half a point, along with better blood pressure. Half a point is a change many people are handed a prescription to achieve. Aim for half a cup to a cup of cooked lentils a few times a week in a soup, a stew, or a cold salad with a little olive oil and a splash of that vinegar we just covered. They are filling, they are cheap, and swapping them in for white rice or white potato is one of the most reliable moves I know to bring a high number down. Let me tell you about a patient I will call Ruth. 64 years old, recently retired, and frightened because her fasting sugar was sitting around 180, and her doctor had just told her it was time to add a second medication. She had watched her own mother lose her eyesight to the same disease, and she did not want to spend the rest of her life climbing the medication ladder. We did not cut her carbohydrates to nothing. We added a tofu scramble with greens instead of cereal in the morning, a tablespoon of vinegar before her larger meals, lentils swapped in for the white rice, walnuts instead of the afternoon cookie, cinnamon in her coffee, and broccoli sprouts on her sandwich at lunch. Within the first week, her fasting number started to fall. Within 3 months, working the whole time alongside her own doctor, she had come off that second medication entirely, and her A1C had moved out of the diabetic range. 2 years later, it is held. She did not starve herself. She ate more food. Just the right food, and her own body did the rest. So, let me tie all 10 of these together because this is the reason they work when cutting carbohydrates alone so often fails. Every one of these foods is quietly handing your insulin its job back. The fiber foods, the fenugreek, chia, oats, and lentils slow the sugar down so your pancreas never has to panic. The walnuts, chia, and greens cool the inflammation that was jamming the signal. The cinnamon, the vinegar, and the sulforaphane in those sprouts walk right up to the insulin receptor and help it grip again. Do that meal after meal, day after day, and the cell that stopped answering the door slowly starts opening it on the first knock. That is what reversing insulin resistance actually means, and it is exactly why Ruth's numbers stayed down on their own. Before I give you tonight's plan, I need to draw one clear line because it matters. If you are taking insulin or one of the older blood sugar pills called a sulfonylurea, these foods can lower your sugar quickly enough that your current dose may suddenly be too strong, and that can drop you too low. That is not a reason to avoid these foods. It is a reason to add them with your doctor watching your numbers, so they can walk your medication down as your body improves. Never stop a prescription on your own. Bring this list to your next appointment instead. So, here's what to do tonight. 5 simple steps. 1. Tomorrow morning, replace your cereal or toast with a tofu scramble folded through with greens. That single swap steadies your blood sugar for the entire day. 2. Tonight, soak a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in a glass of water and drink it first thing in the morning. 3. Buy Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia, and start a 1/4 teaspoon a day in your coffee or your oats. 4. Before your biggest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a full glass of water 15 minutes ahead. 5. This week, swap white rice or white potato for lentils at least twice, and put a small handful of broccoli sprouts on your lunch. Stack these in over the next 2 weeks. You are not taking away the foods you love. You are adding the foods that protect you. If understanding what is actually happening inside your body is useful to you, the way it was for Ruth, consider subscribing because I will keep walking through the research the same way, one honest piece at a time. Everything we did today brings your sugar down during the day and after your meals. But that stubborn morning number, the one that climbs overnight while you sleep and eat nothing, runs on a separate switch inside your liver, and there is a specific way to quiet it. I made a video that explains exactly what is happening overnight and how to wake up to a lower number. I will put it right here on the screen. Go watch that one next, and I will see you in the next one.